we consider porn to be performative, right? And amateur porn stars, what they're doing is still performance. They are catering what they're up to intimately for an audience. They're oftentimes taking requests. That isn't on Makelovenotporn. As I mentioned, we have a curation team, not only watching every single video, but they're also crafting the visual experience that you're having on the site. So when you land there, we're showing you what real world sex is. And I think it's quite obvious to most people who come once you see it and once you watch it that this is very different.
Abigail McLeiner, I would like to welcome you to the Branducation podcast. Thank you so very much for being here. I have been so excited about our conversation because you work with a brand that is an interesting challenge to bring to market, and I can't wait to get into it.
Thanks, Bill. It's my pleasure to be here.
All right, so question one, let's start off with sort of a little background. Tell me about the job you have now and how you got it.
Yeah, I am the head of sales at Makelovenotporn. So I lead everything from marketing to revenue operations, anything that's involved with making sure that a customer can come to our site, experience the site, and end up purchasing something to ultimately give money to our Makelovenotporn stars.
For the people who aren't familiar with the Makelovenotporn brand, can you give us sort of a quick overview on the purpose of the company and where it's going?
Yeah, Makelovenotporn is a real-world sex video viewing platform. Our hope and our dream was when Cindy launched it at 2009 at TED. She wanted to point out that there is a big difference between the sex that you view in porn and the sex that people have in the real world. So our site is set up to showcase videos of people having the real sex that they really have in their everyday lives. So we have real-world people. We also have porn stars who are sharing the videos that they have offset with their actual partners, but ultimately it's a window into the way that everyday people are getting up to in their beds or wherever else they're having sex.
That's fascinating as a brand. What was Cindy's catalyst for this? Like, why did she do the TED Talk? What was the catalyst behind all this?
Yeah, so Cindy is such a unique person. She was dating younger men, and that's who she dates is younger men. And in 2009, or just slightly before, she noticed something that nobody had exactly pointed out yet in culture, which is that young people were starting to mimic the things that they had seen and learned from porn videos in their actual sex life. So the sex that she had been having with younger men before that time period was very different than the sex she was having with young men will come the age of the internet pornography. We don't have a great amount of sex education in the United States and a lot of Western world, and porn had become that by default.
I think that's fascinating. Of all of the things, well, first off, of course, what you see in porn isn't real? Stop. So these younger people were basically using this as an education tool and thinking, well, if this is the behavior that I'm seeing here, then I must need to mimic this or get the same kind of result or reaction from my partner. That had to be incredibly confusing and frustrating, I imagine, on both fronts.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not that revelatory, right? Like we know, and we've already reckoned with the influence that media has on young people. We've talked about how there needs to be more representation in Disney films, for example, but who was thinking about it? What kinds of content we're viewing in the world of porn when we're having a very personal experience that in some ways is giving us a Pavlovian reaction to reaffirm the things that we're seeing as being good and normal. And people hadn't been thinking about that before Cindy. So she created Makelovenotporn to kind of counteract that. And I decided that I wanted to work for Cindy because I wanted to help grow this movement. My history is in marketing. I went to school for marketing. I had done marketing and sales in festival production, and then in the alcohol industry, all these different places where I can break rules because that's my ultimate MO. And now here, I had a big background in activism as well. I wanted to kind of fuse my marketing with my activism and help Cindy grow this because I do believe the more people who experience real world sex, the more the world will start to shift. Cindy calls it ending rape culture, that ultimately we've learned ways that are destructive to each other in the way that we have sex. And if we can see a loving alternative, and Makelovenotporn isn't all loving, some of it is kinky, some of it is just demonstrative of the various ways that humans like to have sex, which is different than the one note, the two note variation that you see in porn.
It's interesting. We had the opportunity a couple of times to work with sex toy companies along the journey. So I've been doing brand work for about 36 years now. And we've had the opportunity to work with some fairly large players and well-established players in the category. And it was fascinating to me the difference in how I assumed that they were looking at their target audience when I came into the conversation versus how incredibly thoughtful they were about the groups and how incredibly dynamic their discussion was about their different target audiences. For example, they referenced people who use masturbation as the same form of release as having a drink after work or what have you. And people who had physical deformities or whatever, who were unable to find partners easily, who were finding solace in being able to do things individually as opposed to in partnership format. And these were things that just weren't a part of the conversation as a normal part of brand. And they were really doing a lot to try to foster those conversations amongst selling, a wide range of products to create a better bedroom experience. And I found that to be interesting that even in the toy zone, they were really concerned with, hey, this is a much, much broader thing than just selling, batteries and plastic and whatever that help get people off. They were thinking much broader about the social implications of this and how they were helping to relieve anxiety for some people and helping to replace partners for other people and so forth. I imagine as you guys got into this, and especially given your background in activism and the rest, this must have just become a wide open playing field of we could talk to this audience and whomever. How did you begin to wrap your head around who needed the information and how to get it to them?
Yeah, that's a great question. When I got to Makelovenotporn 6.5 years ago, there was a very kind of biased idea of who our audience was that was kind of brought into us by culture at large.
Mm-hmm.
Journalists write about us and say, oh, this is porn for women. Well, the funny thing is women aren't our biggest audience. So I did come in and do a huge data analysis that hadn't previously been done to really figure out who truly are the people who are engaging with our site, who not only is coming to engage, but stays long term, and what things do they have in common? Because as you say, there is, even just in the way that humans experience sex, like our curation team who watch every single video that's shared on our site to make sure that it's passes all of our safety checks. They are still surprised to this day, even though some of them have worked here for 10 years, by the things that people are doing. People are different, right? So how can we find the core truths, the things that tie them together that make them want to come to our site? And what I really kind of discovered through this process was that there's this one overarching thing where people realize that something isn't satisfying to them. I think it's a very similar journey that brings people to the gym or brings people to therapy. They know that there's something that needs to change. And so they're in a searching, seeking mindset of looking for an alternative. Because as you say, people need this message, but it's so well hidden by society at large that it isn't even an idea in their mind. And what we've discovered and seen over time is that people come to us looking for porn that is not porn. Like they don't have the language for it yet to say that I want to watch real world sex videos. They want to find porn that isn't porn.
So when you think about the success of this brand and positioning it, so Cindy does her TED Talk, obviously got a tremendous amount of reaction and response. This, of course, breeds the faith and trust in this as a big idea. Now it's something to go take to market. As you come into this, where is or was the brand in terms of engagement, and where do you want it to try to go, not just in terms of business success, but in terms of cultural influence? How do you gauge what is success for this brand with such an incredibly intimate and personal thing as sex and relationship and sex education?
Yeah, it's a great question and something that I think has a multifaceted answer. I could say that we want to impact more percentage of the market across the world because that is true, because we know that people need it and want it. But there's one thing that I hold near and dear to my heart, and it's just an overall shifting of the landscape of sex videos. When I think about industry, Makelovenotporn, although we would love us to be the dominant player, the big thing, and it is possible in my opinion, there is a long-standing monopoly that kind of does have a large footprint in the world of adult content. And what I've been hoping to see since I started was the content to start shifting there and elsewhere, to say that the Makelovenotporn brand is so strong, people clearly love what we're up to, that it is influencing the greater industry. And a few years ago, Pornhub's search term of the year was realistic. And so I do believe that the world is shifting and does long for what we have, the influence is spreading, and that they'll find eventually that Makelovenotporn is the place to get the best real-world sex video content, because it is the only place for real-world sex videos.
Roughly speaking, where are you all in terms of membership at this point in time?
Yeah, roughly speaking, we have about 50,000 active users who are coming to the site regularly to see what we're up to.
That's amazing. I think it's also really telling that industry performers are participating in this. Like that's the fantasy side, that's the job side. But there's, I think people have a tendency to see porn actors as very shallow characters, right? They're sort of there to do this one particular thing. And then there's sort of a drop-off of understanding of what the rest of their life must be like. I think it's fascinating that people who work in that industry have come to join part of the movement to say, look, there's reality beyond this that you should be aware of. How did that get started?
Yeah, that was a part of Cindy's original vision. So right when we launched, we had what we like to call offset videos. We have a whole tagging system, and Cindy's created kind of a language for sex that she calls the lictionary. So that's one of our terms that we use. And yeah, the creators is another great point, though, that we as a brand, and part of my role is speaking to such different types of folks, that it's not just the end user, the member that we are engaging with in the world through our communications. It's also creators. And the vast majority of our creators, what we hope to have as the vast majority still in the future too, are people who aren't your conventional porn star. They're not trying to make a brand and a business out of their content that they're creating. They're doing it just because it improves their life and their sex life, and it's a bonus to make some money on the side.
How does the aspect of education work its way into what could be perceived by some as just a different form of amateur porn as opposed to professional porn, I suppose? I'm not sure how to delineate exactly in the appropriate term, but how do you sort of manage that misperception from a distance? Yeah,
we kind of do it by demonstration. I mean, Cindy talks about our brand as being education by demonstration. You're showing people how real world sex is. And we have a very similar approach with our communications. So we use our brand language to bring folks onto the site, and they can experience it and see it for themselves, that this is actually quite different than other amateur porn sites, because we consider porn to be performative, right? And amateur porn stars, what they're doing is still performance. They are catering what they're up to intimately for an audience. They're oftentimes taking requests. That isn't on Makelovenotporn. As I mentioned, we have a curation team who is not only watching every single video, but they're also crafting the visual experience that you're having on the site. So when you land there, we're showing you what real world sex is. And I think it's quite obvious to most people who come, once you see it and once you watch it, that this is very different than what you're seeing from either amateur porn or more
professional or polished porn. Yeah, I'm not sure what the right term is. So what is the biggest barrier for the brand in terms of new adoption? Is it that you can't market, or that you're limited in the messaging that you're allowed to use as marketing, or is it geographic reach, or is it the fact that the porn industry simply has so much momentum? Like, as you all think about this, where's the biggest brand challenge, and how do you overcome it?
So I believe, and Cindy believes, that our biggest challenge is that we just don't have a budget. In the 7 years I've been here, we've more than doubled the site in that period of time, but we've done that with zero ad spend. So we're not able to do the things that larger brands just take for granted. Everything that we've gotten, we've had to claw for. We are seeking things out that are more of the earned category, but we're working for it. A lot of people do come to Cindy as well, though.
So how long has the business been going?
Since 2009 was the TED Talk, and then the site launched a couple years after that.
No ad spend at all?
Yeah, isn't that miraculous, really?
Yeah. So how are you doing engagement? Just through social or email outreach or?
So our site has grown thanks to awesome press opportunities, awesome influencers who so get and understand the mission and the value in the world that they're willing to work with us. Also, great social outreach. Organic completely. Cindy obviously has a great brand herself that helps with that, but we have been able to grow despite the immense algorithmic censorship going on. We have been able to grow quite an awesome brand in certain social spaces. And then, email is huge for us, but that is just retention and engagement with our existing community. But the growth has come from podcasts, press, influencers, and social organic.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
What would success this year be for you all in terms of growth? If you've got 50,000 subscribers now, where would you want to go to see this as a big success year?
Oh, gosh. The truth is that there are so many issues that we constantly are battling that success is being alive in some ways. It is crazy to say, as well received as we've been, as great proof of concept as we have, how we're still unable to secure investment, how we still worry sometimes that things could be completely pulled up from underneath us. Just for example, the bias that affects adult content is far more than just the algorithmic censorship. Cindy and Makelovenotporn has been debanked twice in the last 2 months. So with days notice saying you don't have a bank account anymore. So all of the subscription revenue that we have has to just float in the ether until we're able to get a new bank, which is then talking to dozens and dozens of folks to find somebody who understands us enough to say okay, yeah, we'll take your money. It is wild.
That's amazing to me that is still going on when you think about legalization of marijuana, you think about, other things that have become, even sex toys are in Target now, so you wouldn't think that would still be a problem. Is it because they don't understand the mission and sort of the cause that you all are doing? Are you just getting lumped in with, you guys are porn and that's that? Yeah,
it is a lack of nuance. Down to, in the world of banking, for example, which then does impact all of the other tools that most businesses take for granted, like being able to use Stripe or Amazon Pay, or being able to work with an advertiser, or being able to use the very basic video streaming software that's most inexpensive and works the best. All of those folks won't work with us because their ultimate bank won't let them either. So we have to have some less sound tools, and it's because the banks categorize businesses in very simplistic ways, and anything adult content is still classified in the same category as telemarketers, which goes to show our bias of telemarketers as well.
That's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, we aren't differentiated at all. And Makelovenotporn, we say we're pro-sex, pro-porn, pro-knowing the difference. And we don't want to distance ourselves from porn necessarily. We are pro-porn, but we are just a very different thing. And we hope to one day establish world order that is true across the board. That's amazing. When you think about this, is this a brand or is this a cause? I think that society is moving away from the differentiators there. I think that a lot of brands are causes and movements, that we are both. We are a social sex movement, is what Cindy likes to call it, a social sex revolution, a cause, a movement around folks who want to watch and share their sex life as if they are socially sharing anything else about their life. But I think the brand feeds that, and the movement then feeds the brand as well. What role does storytelling play in this, or is it so centered on the act itself that
there really isn't room for that. Like when I think about porn as a standalone entity, it's a micro movie, right? There's a beginning, a middle, and an end, and then it's on to the next. There is no attached education or edutainment section to it per se. It's simply this thing. So is there story around why this works or what this is that you're seeing? Or like, does story come into this at all? Or is it just whatever the creator's content is the story that's put in place?
I love this question because we've evolved this internally with our communications since we've been around. For a very long time, we were telling the stories of the members who come to the site, experience what we're all about and how it dramatically impacts and shifts their life. Like, you know, we talk about in marketing that individual life experiences that are great for them to experience a new brand. Well, I feel like Makelovenotporn makes one of those happen, that we create a big life shift in different members' worlds. So we told those stories for quite a long time, and those are helpful stories, but the far and away superior message has been this telling the stories of our creators, the people who come to us, just everyday people who decide that they want to share their sex life, and starting to share and make them personalities that are just as strong and bold as our founder, Cindy Gallop, has been a huge, huge win for us, especially in the age of social media influence that it has right now. Everybody is drawn to personality and having a unique perspective. And I think our sex videos, when we are one of our new content programs that we've had in the last few months has been taking little aspects of safe for work moments from our sex videos and sharing them through social media as if it is social media content. So, for example, you said that like porn videos are scripted stories and real world sex isn't, but real world sex does have context, which porn doesn't. So before you have sex with your partner or yourself, because we think that solo sex is also real world sex, you have something that's happening in you. You have something that's driving you to want to have sex and something that's driving you to want to connect with your partner, or maybe pushing you away, and that's why you come together. Either way, there's a story that existed in your hearts before you had that moment and what happened after as well. And we have, in most of our videos that are uploaded to our site, that context is shared. So they'll get to camera and they'll say, oh, before we had sex, we were kind of arguing and ended up kind of making up. So they're telling the story of that sexual moment. And we have, with the permission of our Makelovenotporn stars, taken little parts of those and started to share them through our social channels. So we don't necessarily consider ourselves a media company, but after being around for over 10 years, you have a huge base of this video content that we have at our disposal that has created such beautiful storytelling moments to share with the world and has become a huge new traffic stream for us.
What role do the talent play or the influencers play in terms of sharing this message out, not just the content?
Yeah, we have had not as much as a traditional porn site would, because our creators are frequently not people who care about their brand and care about their own business side of their sex videos. But we're starting to help them and equip them to do that more if they're interested.
In addition, how are they helping to rep you all as a concept for people seeing their content through their own social?
Yeah, it's become quite an awesome ecosystem of support that when Makelovenotporn has now become more emboldened to share the more sexy, more risky content through our social channels, it has been sending and supporting the Makelovenotporn stars and their rental income, but also them doing the same has brought folks back into our ecosystem. So we're very open with the ways that our creators can share about us. We don't have a lot of brand restrictions on for them, but we do say that if the Makelovenotporn brand is sharing it, we'll always keep it very safe for work. Mostly because we want to protect a brand image of being anybody could stumble across and feel comfortable with. So if you're coming from a place of having a few more insecurities or taboos infiltrating your own perspective, we want what you're what you're encountering for Makelovenotporn to be comfortable. We're not going to put graphic content right in front of folks from the get-go. It'll be very much like people first, context first, and then sexy stuff next.
So prior to this was not one of the causes that you were sort of championing per se, although I read much of your content on happy endings and really loved your self-proclaimed thing about feminist turned monogamous. That was one of my favorite like transition things that caught my attention. It was funny. But as you've moved into this environment, you've gone into being a creator yourself and in sharing information. Was that, in your opinion, sort of doorway that opened as being a part of this brand, or was that something that was already of interest that this just now gave a platform to? Or like, how did you make that transition? Because it seems as though that site is very much in support of this and almost mimicking it to a certain extent in terms of personal share and where that's education is going through your own personal experience.
Yeah, before I got into Makelovenotporn, most of my activist work was centered around gender and the perception of women and women identifying people. And I believe that Makelovenotporn and what alternative porn producers are doing for the perception of gender period is quite world changing. And I also believe that that the world could use a bit more love. And I think Makelovenotporn is a very healthy space that showcases love and loving yourself, appreciating your body, and that all sorts of people and bodies and relationships can be loving and loved, period. So I've always had that as a part of my like main driving force, but working with Cindy is my first time, being more comfortable and having such a great influence from her and her truth speaking for sharing your sexuality with the world. And seeing and being here for so long and noticing how hungry people are for positive examples of people who are comfortable doing that has given me the courage and confidence to start sharing my own stories. And so, yeah, I'm not a sex video creator, but I do have a Substack where I share sex stories and a window into my relationship, a textual window into my relationship, and how love is fostered in parents, a totally normal relationship that
right.
I think people don't often get a window into in that kind of way.
What kind of response have you gotten from that effort?
It's been quite amazing, really. I kind of thought that maybe it would just be a little passion project for a while. You know how if you spend time meditating on love, it will bring more love back into your life. And so I thought about it in that kind of woo sense. So if I write these love stories, it'll make me appreciate the love I have in my life more, and it will just foster more positivity. And then if people enjoy it and it becomes a thing, that would be an awesome bonus. But yeah, it's been so well received. People are appreciating honest expression, and also like in especially heterosexual relationships, there is kind of this privacy curtain that pops up for a lot of people where you don't have any idea what's going on behind the scenes, right? And I think that hurts a lot of folks. You see like trends in the world right now where Gen Z, their number one craving is a monogamous relationship, and yet relationships are on the decline. People aren't even spending as much time together. I don't think that there are a lot of opportunities to see aspirational, happy, healthy, not perfect, of course, relationships in the wild. And so I thought this could be a place that could be witnessed. And so far, it's been very well received.
I wonder how much that change in trend has to do with the easy access to sex and all things sex. You know, when you think about Tinder, the first time I heard a young person describe Tinder as basically, I sign up this morning, I get laid tonight, I was like, whoa, wait, what? Like, this is something that you order up now like a sandwich. I mean, and I wonder how profoundly that change, it's like they can't talk to each other, but they can sleep together. And I feel like that is having a significant impact on the fundamental basis of what relationship is. You know, part of the relationship was the bravery of walking across a crowded room and saying hello the first time and getting to know each other. And when that part of it is taken out of the equation, it becomes incredibly transactional.
Yeah, I mean, I believe that, and this is, I think, applicable for brands no matter if you're in the intimate space or not, because this is what humans are experiencing right now. It's this like devoid of the intimacy. It's just the transactional sex. And we, I think, as a society in the United States especially, I think have less of that bravery that you're describing, that comfort with putting yourself out there, that willingness to have to fail, to approach a conversation and have it not work. So I think that the impact of that trickles through all parts of our worlds, that we're less practiced in putting ourselves out there and being rejected. And that has devolved, I believe.
I would have to agree with you. If Make Love Not Porn could say something to the world that the world needed to hear, that marketing and advertising and budget restraints have restricted, what would your statement be? What would the call to the brand be?
So the Make Love Not Porn brand is so founder driven that our voice is so similar to the Cindy Gallup voice, and she doesn't hold back, and she's always saying things that she believes in. So I feel Make Love Not Porn hasn't necessarily held back the things we want to say, but it hasn't reached the people. That's true. And so what we want to say is that real world sex is beautiful, it's messy, it's sexy, it's incredibly life-changing, and some folks have found it to be profoundly impactful in their lives, not only as a masturbatory tool or a thing to watch with your partner to inspire you in other ways to have sex, but also a way to see yourself and relationships and sexuality in a different light that's more meaningful and fulfilling.
Abigail, thank you so much for giving me so much time today. This has been really, really insightful on, a brand in a category that faces so many obstacles, personal obstacles, professional obstacles, media obstacles, financial obstacles. It's just been great hearing your perspective on things. If people want to learn more about the brand and how to get involved either as a, subscriber or as a creator, how can they go about doing that?
Thanks. Yeah, come to Makelovenotporn.com. You'll find everything you need there. And if you're on social media, our Instagram is where I've been mostly sharing those awesome clips as I described. We can be found at Makelovenotporn.
Thank you so much for your time today. This has been a great conversation. I'm really excited to share this.
Thanks for having me, Bill. It was an awesome chat.